Mikey P, Mike Robosi, back in the Money Players podcast, Keeneland Friday edition. And of course, my favorite handicapper is sitting here with me, Mr. Nick Tammaro. Nick, you're everywhere. I know you're going to be at the Derby in a couple weeks, but you're the morning line maker at Keeneland, so I value your opinion overall for these Keeneland shows. Welcome back.
I appreciate you having me, Mike. Yep, ready to roll. Got the Twin Spires gear on, ready to get there in a couple weeks, and looking forward to Derby and everything. But we've still got 5 cards left at Keeneland, obviously, with this Friday program Saturday, and then 3 next week. They'll be dark on Sunday for Easter. So very much looking forward to this final stretch of what's been a pretty fun meet so far. Obviously had the odd start with the delays and the cancellations, and ended up losing a race last week as well. That was canceled because of issues amid the race itself. So, yeah, ready for some just a good old-fashioned racing where racing was meant to be.
Absolutely, and I love Keeneland. I feel the cards have been great. The wagering's been very good, and I've cashed a few tickets, I have to say. So I'm happy. Thing. Yeah, never a bad thing whatsoever. We're going to look at late pick 5 for Friday, and we have 2 turf races, 3 dirt races. Starts in race number 6, 3:40 Eastern time for that late pick 5. 6.5 furlongs, Nick. It's 3s and up, 2 lifers, 40 claimers. I thought a pretty wide open, tough race. Could you separate them?
I think there's probably 2 clear deserving favorites, and then sort of everybody else. And I mean the 3 Divine and the 5 Zen Master, who are going to take the majority of the wagering attention. The horse like the 5 Zen Moment, I should say. Going back to those 5 furlong races she ran, one of which was an off the turf race. They're just a lot faster than the majority of the races the horses in here have run of late. Of course, this is Keeneland and it's a claimer, and what you expect to get in this scenario quite often are horses dropping. And connections are obviously either trying to move away from some of these horses, or just get them to where they can be victorious. And it feels like that's the case with Zen Moment, who came into Brendan Walsh's barn, sprinted on turf at Fairgrounds, showed some speed in a fast-paced race, and then abruptly stopped. And I think Brendan's ready to wave the white flag and just say, this is a claimer. Let's get her into a spot where maybe she could win. And if she gets taken for 40, I don't think they're going to be too upset. The 3 Divine is a little bit similar in that the horse ran once on turf unsuccessfully and now comes back from a layoff in the barn of Rudy Brissett. I will admit, Mikey, that I got burned by a lot of Rudy Brissett horses last fall from a morning line perspective, and they're not taking the same action. They're also really not running as well as they did for the most part. He does have a couple of wins at the meet, so I'm going to be intrigued by what kind of action Divine gets. The other thing about this horse is that her best races came for Saffie Joseph Jr., and let's be honest, it's tough to get horses to duplicate that kind of form when they're in other barns. I thought the potential long shot that you might want to try and find a way to include was the one up the creek, because I think this horse's last race wasn't that bad. I think a 35-2 life at Oaklawn like that probably compares pretty favorably. I really wish the horse had gotten an outside post in order to kind of stalk and pounce a little bit more than maybe having to be pressed into a boxed-in type trip. So mainly 3-5 for me, a little bit of 1.
Yeah, I get the 5, and I agree with you totally there. As far as this horse has never been cheapened up to this point, and they tried a couple different things. And they've tried shorter races, they tried the grass, showed speed in both scenarios, and just ultimately got tired. I do think agreed that this one's a claimer. You reach for Pratt. I think that they're trying to get the win here, so I would not be opposed to using this one. I wasn't crazy about the 3, just the bad dates. The turf try was poor. I know this horse looks similar to the 5, and you get IRAD, so I guess has possibilities, but just wasn't necessarily for me, just with the Saffie lines. The other horse I saw was the 7. It'll Be Fun, and it's Ken McPeak. This horse has been racing at 1X at Fairgrounds. Another one that tried the grass, tried a stake earlier. Actually, it was in December at Oaklawn. Was terrible in that race, but sloppy track, had a win over the slop at Churchill. I don't know what to do with this race, really, but it is another horse that's dropping. You get Jose Ortiz. I do think the winner will probably come from the 3, 5, or 7. I think you have to kind of maybe take a stand against one of those. So I was against the 3. I'll use the 5 and 7. Hope to get out of the first leg of the pick 5 for Friday. Race number 7 is a restricted main special weight for straight 3-year-olds, and this is for horses that sold or RNA'd for $65,000 or less in the most recent auction. I found this race a little bit difficult to navigate. I was on 3 horses. I didn't mind the 2. Lazy Legacy, 8-1 morning line here. It's Aaron West. Now, basically a claimers first time out at Turfway, but that was open claimers. This is a restricted maiden special, so it's not like it's an open maiden special weight. I think this is more like a lateral move to me. I don't really think that this is going to be a class issue that gets this horse beat. Did well first time out. Had the 11 post. That I thought was pretty difficult. Ended up second. Got beat 4 lengths. Now they protect this horse. So there's lots of things to like, I think, for this one, especially in a race where you could probably get a price. So I think that 7 or the 2 could be used. The 7 can also be used. It's order restored. It's John Ortiz. I pretty much use all of his horses. And, this one has shown speed in the past. Sloppy track last time at February 15th. I'm willing to forgive that line. The first outline on January 3rd, I think, is decent. Probably plays well versus these horses, and I definitely like the connections there. So I would be using that one. And then the 11 True Passion, I think, is another one. It's Lonnie Briley, raced in an open main special at Oaklawn March 30th. Did race very well, but did take money in that race. And it was, fast fractions early. This horse faded. You get an outside post, you get Laneri. I know he's sort of struggling at the meet, but I think he has possibilities. If they scratch the 13 in, that's the other John Ortiz. I certainly would use that one, and he could get in. I mean, he has another horse in the race. What'd you think in here?
Yeah, I actually made the 13 the morning line favorite if this horse gets in. When you calculate a morning line, you don't include the AEs. So this is a horse that I could basically make whatever price I wanted, and there's no total adjusted whatsoever. I mean, I kind of felt like if Johnny Ortiz wanted the 13 to go, he clearly controls that, training both. But of course, the 7 is the one that's actually in the body of the field. Yeah, I agree with the 3 horses you mentioned. I thought the 11 True Passion was very interesting. Obviously, Lonnie Briley's still a small-time trainer, but more of a household name now with Cole Battle in the lead up to the Triple Crown, having won a couple of meaningful stakes races. So I thought this filly was really dangerous. He has good numbers from a limited sample with second-time starting maidens, and she showed some speed. I like betting these Timeform US running line horses that get involved in fast paces back. They seem to overperform more often than not, and I think it's just the tax that they pay from racing forwardly in a fast-paced race. So I wanted True Passion to kind of be my top pick. I think the only other horse that I priced somewhat short that we didn't talk about was the 8 Theatrics, and this is a horse who took an awful lot of money in each of her last 2 starts on the turf at Gulfstream and really didn't do a heck of a lot of running. Her debut was okay. She didn't take much money, showed a little speed, faded. I don't exactly know what this is class-wise because the only dirt start came against maiden auction horses. It's probably comparable to that. She's also a horse that now has some experience. So I think she'll run better, but I will admit this was a really difficult race, not only to make a line for, but also to have any real handicapping opinion. I did think the 6 Passage East was a little dangerous. I don't exactly know how much I want to build up that Colonial Downs form, but that was a fast-paced race, and this filly was always in range of it before she ended up settling for second. She takes money pretty much every time. I wanted to make her the favorite. I just couldn't quite wrap my head around Hugh McMahon and David Cohen being favored in a race like this at Keeneland. So that was ultimately, it was a human connection thing that really stopped me, even though they're both competent in their own right. I made this horse a co-second choice.
Yeah, interesting horse there. 5 races, 5 second place finishes. Nick, I want to ask you about the Colonial races because it seems like there were a lot of races that were won up close to the pace. And a lot of those horses are coming back and really not performing quite as well. What's your take on that short Colonial meet and some of those, the way that track played over those couple of days?
Yeah, and this was a horse that ran on the first day, which felt like it may have been the most egregious bias. And so I think the horse that you and I are probably both thinking of in our own way is the Brad Cox favorite that came back last week, a second-time starter that came back at Keeneland and underperformed. And I think that's probably who we're looking at as the poster child for whether the Colonial Downs form really holds up. So I agree. I mean, I want to upgrade this one because it was a fast pace. The problem is that it looks like the buyer figure might be a little inflated. If you use the normal Timeform US to buyer type conversion, if you will, this fig comes up too fast. So I don't know if it really is. And so now you've got a horse with you're skeptical of the form of the race they're coming out of with a buyer speed figure that might be too high. Those are usually 2 ingredients for an underlay.
So just your final numbers here for the notes, Nick. I know you like the 11. Who else do we want to check here?
I'd be using the 8 and 11 for sure. I'd probably use the 7 more so as a backup, and I would find a way to include the 9. I like some of the 9's races earlier in her career, and now going back out of an open maiden into this restricted, cutting back in distance. These horses don't generally have as much luck at Keeneland, but I could definitely make a case for her at 5-1 or so.
Jump to race 8, go to the grass. It's an allowance, a condition allowance race, going 5.5. And Nick, some familiar names in this spot who will certainly take money in Big Invasion. I would say no Nay Hudson. What say you in here with these two?
Yeah, this is a tough race, and there's a couple of horses in here that maybe are coming off what look like poorer races than they actually were. But yeah, this is a grade 3 allowance for sure. I mean, there are horses in here that you wouldn't have been all that shocked if they ended up running in a race like the Shakertown. So I did think it was a little interesting that that Christophe Clement is using Irad Ortiz on Big Invasion, and Rosario is in the mix on this card, but not on this horse. So I was a little surprised by that. I do think he's the horse to beat. I tried to make a case for Doncho. There's just not enough turf pedigree for me on the dam side with Doncho. He's a horse who has some talent. He's also the main speed on paper, and I wouldn't be worried a second about a guy like Jamie Torres getting him to the lead. So I felt like he, was at least worth mentioning. There are horses coming from Florida that are going to run better than they did down there. I don't know what happened with American Monarch last time, but this is a horse whose 2 turf sprints, they were actually 2 different versions of the elusive quality, one run at Belmont, one run at Aqueduct, were both very good. And I think there's at least an argument to be made that this horse deserves an opportunity. I'd like to argue that he needed Lasix, but he ran those 2 good turf races without Lasix. So maybe he's over the hill at the age of 7, but he's a horse I'd like to try and wake up. And I think the 6, That's Right, is going to be far more dangerous this time around. Now he's in Kentucky where Brad's horses are running very well. Florent is likely to get this horse forward. That's where he wants to be. And he's run very well at Keeneland in the past. I mean, he set a breakneck pace in that turf sprint last fall before he gave way late. So I wanted to upgrade his chances a little bit. No Nay Hudson is clearly good enough. His last race was bad, Mikey. I liked him that day. He was bet down to 8-5. He had a perfect trip and was just dead empty late. So unless you have a belief about the track profile at Fairgrounds that day, it's awfully hard to bet him back. And, to my surprise, Wesley's not done that great at Keeneland this meet. He's had some 2-year-old winners. His older horses are not really getting bet that much. They're not really winning all that much either.
Yeah, it was a little better today. I think he had a couple wins there on the card.
He did have a maiden win and a 2-year-old. Yes.
I was against the favorites here. I understand the Big Invasion and no Nay Hudson can both win this race. The Big Invasion return feels a little preppy to me. And he's come back like this before. And I think his best races are at Saratoga. I know he almost won the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. I mean, I realize that this horse has won 9 of 22 races, but he's going to get hammered in this spot. And it'd be interesting to see how Irad rides him, because this horse is a stone cold one punch type that needs to sit and make that one run. And Irad usually doesn't do that. I'm not saying he's incapable of it, but I'd be curious to see the tactics. And I just don't know that I want him in here. And you mentioned a lot of the ones that I do like. I think that the 6, That's Right, is a definite use. And if you look at his class lines recently, I mean, faced Coppola a couple of times at Gulfstream. Well, good luck with that. Arrest Me Red here. That's a horse that likes this track. Izzy Vangu back before that. So this horse is facing legitimate horses, is fast enough to beat these. I think just needs to get the jump, has shown speed in the past. So I do think that one plays pretty well. Agree on the 8, I think, as a price is interesting. You get Junior here. 12-1 morning line. The turf sprint lines play very well versus these horses. I thought the 10 had a little bit of a shot there. Dabab, I guess the horse's name is. Yep. Another one that's raced very well versus similar horses. I mean, if you look at some of those class lines, this horse finished second to Patches O'Houlihan at Woodbine in their turf sprint up there. That horse is a monster at Woodbine. So I do think that all those horses have lines that play very well in this race, and there aren't going to be nearly as much money as the 4 and the 5. The 5's had 5 chances on the Keeneland grass and has no wins. Is 0 for 2 years. Like, why is this horse supposed to win this race at 4-1? I don't know. I could see it, but I think that this is a race that you want to spread out, take a few prices, try to beat these favorites, and maybe get alive in some of these multi-legs with some prices.
I agree completely. I think it's a very wide open race. I think there's a lot of different ways you can go. So no, I like some of the ideas for sure. Actually, I made DeBob 8-1 on the morning line because that was still a 95 fig last time, turf or synthetic or not. So, and this horse's turf sprints, as you alluded to, are very much good enough to contend in here.
Let's jump to the stake, and it's race number 9, the Grade 3 Double Dog Dare. Mount is 16th. It's older fillies and mares. And Nick, I remember being at the Double Dog Dare back in 2000 when Silver Bullet Day won for Bob Baffert. So that's how long ago I go back with Keeneland. So very fond memories of this race. This is a really very nice race with, you got Just FYI, you got Tarifa coming back. Candide certainly likes Keeneland. What say you in here?
Yeah, fun race. And I think one of the things about the older female ranks right now, and I don't want to turn this into another Torpedo Anna conversation, but I don't think there's a lot of variation right now between what's at the top and what's in the middle. So you have horses in here that have obviously been beaten by Torpedo Anna, but they're horses that probably deserve another opportunity. And I made Candide the favorite, a pretty strong favorite at that, in large part because coming off a comparable layoff last year in the Ashland, she was made the 8-5 favorite before she ended up behind her stablemate, Leslie's Rose. Just FYI is really dangerous in here, Mikey, because she's loose. She's going to get the lead, but boy, you've got to be worried about that race she ran last time. It was just not on par with what we had grown accustomed to seeing prior. One thing I will say, though, is Time From US had that race very strong, and I don't want to completely dismiss her because she ran what looks poorly in there when it came up as quick as it did. She got a 1:15 Time From US number, which is a lifetime top for her by 3 points. So in all likelihood, with the rail, she only has one way to go. She's going straight to the lead. I'm going to use her on any of my multis. I'll get out of here with her and Candy. I don't really need anybody else. I've never been a Tarifa fan. I don't really love the race that Tarifa ran last time. I think she's always been pretty overrated. So that was a good rail that she came back on Mother Goose Day to beat Gun Song. That was part of the reason why Prettyana was able to come back and win the Cumley. And Occult is just not much to me. She might run well off the bench for Chad, but she's never really been much horse. It's been a long time since she won a race as well.
I do think that speed is a huge advantage in this race. And you mentioned Just FYI, and like you said, only one way to go. Second back, and second back last year was after the Ashland was the Oaks, and she ran very well in the
very
Oaks
well.
Last
Yeah.
year. So I do like the second back angle. I do think her price could drift up. I mean, she only got a 79 buyer in that last race. That sticks out like a sore thumb here. We know that she's better than that. She's going to get the front. You got the short stretch, working very well. So there's so many things to like about this horse in here. And I think some others are going to take money. And Candide is. I mean, obviously, you made her 8-5 on the morning line. And this one, has 4 straight grade 1 races, has really nice lines at Keeneland. But it's going to have to be, catch the one in this race. I'd be curious to see when she does go after her in here, because, you have the short stretch. So I do think that is an advantage for Just FYI and probably makes her more likely to win this race. So for me, I would probably let Candide out and try to play against her. One horse that sort of intrigued me, that's going to be a bomb, really, and she probably has no business winning the race, is the Forward Dreaming of Mo, because I think she's going to get a garden spot type of trip. Now, she's never really been classed up with a lot of these, but speedy enough to sit off of the one here and could get first run. And maybe if Just FYI isn't herself, she gets to jump on the closers. Now, is she good enough to hold them off? I'm not sure, but I don't hate those lines. I don't hate her pace lines in here. The last dirt race at Churchill was pretty nice in that, it'd be at a sloppy track. It was a 2X back in October. So she handles the dirt. And Dale Romans' barn, I mean, we talked about this before. I think that he's really been very good this year so far. He's been good at Gulfstream. He has a couple wins here at this meet. So this would be a bomb for me that I would want to include on tickets, because I would imagine she'll be the longest shot.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the question obviously is fast dirt, but I don't want to condemn her because her 2 fast dirt races were bad. They came all the way back in her second and third career starts. So it's been a long, long time ago. And you're right, Dale has had an incredible year so far. So it's hardly going to surprise if she runs well in this spot, and she'll get a good trip just off the pace. I agree. So definitely a bomb that you could do worse than.
Race 10 to finish, and we're back to the grass. Mount is 16th, and this is 4 and up. It's a 1X allowance, and the 2 Mystifying, I think, is going to be a strong favorite in here. You made this one 9-5 morning line. One turf race in her 3 starts, and it was an 88 figure at Saratoga. Got beat by a repeater back in September. I do think that this horse should improve coming back. I think she wants every bit of the route distance. She's got an inside post. And she was close in that prior turf start. She won first time out going 6 furlongs at Gulfstream. So speedy enough. She's supposed to get the jump on these. And there's a lot of question marks in here. A lot of Euro shipping in for Brendan Walsh. You have a Chad Brown that he's bringing from Tampa. You have a Clement he's bringing in from Ireland. Too many questions for me on those. I just think the two's faster, and I probably would have to live and die in this late pick 5 with the two mystifying. Nick, how do you think we get paid here?
No, I couldn't agree more. I think the exact same thing. I think you've got to lean on her. She's supposed to win this race. And quite honestly, Mikey, I was trying to make her shorter. I was trying to get her down to 6-5 or 7-5. Just it's some of those question marks that, I can't willingly put. I know the last figure was not that great, but I can't hang 12 or 15 to 1 on a Chad Brown, Flavian Pratt horse. Right. And I think I ended up making the 10-9 to 2, but then you've got the couple of European imports as well. I made unreasonable 8-1. That's a Christophe Clement horse that ran against Group 3 horses, obviously didn't finish in the frame, but still ran against some really good horses. You've got a Cassie in there in Aspen Dawn, who's got some very good turf form overall. And I didn't know what to do with the 6 Expensive Queen either for Brendan Walsh. Not the best overseas form, but obviously these horses have done very well for him. His percentages with first-time North American runners are gigantic. This horse comes in with a bullet workout as well. I ended up throwing a horse like the 8 Loterie totally out as far as the odds go, making her 10-1. That's a Cherie DeVaux horse, second off a layoff, who granted was 7-1 last out. Didn't do much running, maybe needed a race. So I just think Mystifying's supposed to win. She's got a big pace advantage in here, and this is a situation where Jose Ortiz is supposed to put her right on the lead and really never look back. So not only was a Child of the Moon, who beat her last time, a next out winner, she won the Athenia. There were 4 next out winners from that race overall. So it was a very, very key race. And Mystifying, for those that aren't aware, has a gigantic turf pedigree. So this is a horse that I know plenty of people, including myself, were really looking forward to her getting to the turf. Could have used her hanging on that day as well, but her dam was a multiple turf winner. And this filly is a half to Star Command, who was a multiple turf winner, and Clever Thought, who won on the turf as well. And that second family's huge, right? It's Dancing in My Dreams, which includes Dancing Forever, who was second in the Manhattan, and Imagining, who also was a very, very competent turf horse. So definitely a situation where this horse should probably get better second-time turf.
Yeah, and really, I think that a lot of tickets will run through that one to finish out the Maltese Friday at Keeneland. Well, Nick, like I said, the morning lines have been stellar so far. The meet is trucking along, and it's been a lot of fun doing these shows with you. So hopefully, I think we have another week that maybe we can sneak one more in.
I'd love it. Absolutely. Good luck with the remainder of the meet.
This has been a production of In the Money Media. Enjoy Keeneland this weekend. Be back next, I would say tomorrow, I think, for a Saturday show looking at the late pick 5 for Keeneland. Jump on In the Money YouTube. Check out the Monster Pods. Go to the audio side. Plenty of content for everybody to check out. We'll see you all next time.